Okay, so you're saying, well, why would they start the show with a Buddy Holly song?
I know.
Okay, little Johnny, what's the answer?
Well, let's see. It's January. We're coming up on the anniversary of the day the music died. Is that it?
Oh, well, that's part of it. And as we approach that...
I did my homework, by the way.
As we approach that, there is a gathering that will be going on once again. In fact, this year, I believe Jerry Lee Lewis is the headliner at John Mueller's Winter Dance Party. And that, of course, is an event that commemorates what has been called the day the music died. And we're going to talk a little bit about Buddy Holly, but we're also going to talk a little bit about Gary W. Moore's discovery of Buddy Holly. And you're saying, well, who is this Gary W. Moore guy?
Well, let's say hi. Gary?
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, Gary.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Gary is the author of In Pursuit of Buddy Holly, My New Buddy John, and My Lost Decade of Music.
Hey, Buddy is the title of a brand new book. And I got to tell you, at the outset, every time, and this book has been right there next to the bed. Steve has a copy on one side of his bed. I have a copy on my side of the bed. And the other day I said to him, you know what? I'm done with the book, but I'm leaving it there because Buddy Holly, in this particular picture on the cover of the book, looks like Matthew McConaughey. Looks just like McConaughey.
Yeah, I see that now.
Isn't that weird?
I never thought about that, yeah.
It's the whole chin thing going on.
Yep.
And you think McConaughey, you think sex symbol. You never really thought of Buddy Holly as a sex symbol, right?
No, that's
he
right.
was the nerdy kid next door who was really cool when it came to music, but the bottom line was he was kind of nerdy. Right?
Yeah, I think he was. It's funny. I was at the Buddy Holly Center a few months ago, and the curator there, Jacqueline Bober, one of the things she said about this photo is that Buddy's family talks about this is the photo where they see Buddy changing from a boy into a man and seeing his face really mature.
And he was only
22 when he died.
Wow. But in this picture, he would have been 21 years old.
Yeah, that was taken in the kitchen of the Waterloo, Iowa Electric Park Ballroom.
Sitting on a freezer.
That's right.
And the freezer, as you say in the book, is somewhere in a landfill.
It's
Sadly,
somewhere. We don't know where it is.
This beautiful picture of Buddy Holly sitting on a freezer, and that freezer ended up not getting the appreciation that it deserved.
Yep.
Well, the book is all about, not just about Buddy Holly. Yes, it's about Buddy, but it's about how you really discovered Buddy, and we have to give credit to your wife and your mother-in-law for sending you on this journey.
Absolutely. I mean, my mother-in-law is the sweetest woman you'd ever meet. She's a Donna Reed kind of woman, and who would have ever guessed her to be a rocker? And I found out on her 77th birthday that the only thing she wanted to do was go see John Mueller perform at the University of Northern Iowa in the Winter Dance Party. And I made the assumption it was a Benny Goodman or Tommy Dorsey type of dance. And I was really surprised to find out that it was a Buddy Holly. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't know who Buddy Holly. I mean, I knew the name. I knew there was a movie about him that I hadn't seen, but that was really, really all I knew.
And yet, we would have gone to high school together. We would have been peers. Yeah. And when I read that, I was absolutely stunned. But you were traveling in different circles. You were drum and bugle. You were country music. Your dad wasn't really embracing the whole rock and roll thing during the 60s. So that's why you weren't hip to that music.
No, I really missed a whole decade of music and part of that culture. It was something that wasn't appreciated in my home.
But you grew up in Illinois.
I did. I grew up in Kankakee, Illinois.
Which I find amazing.
Yeah.
That's not Podunk, Iowa.
No, but you
could fall into Chicago.
Yeah, and everybody says that. It seems very, very difficult to believe that I really wasn't exposed to rock and roll. But I grew up in a home where my father was a veteran, didn't really appreciate what was happening in the culture and the music. He listened to country and western. From the time I was 8 years old, I was hanging around the VFW and American Legion. I was involved in Drum and Bugle Corps, and they certainly didn't like what was going on, in the world. Then I graduated from high school, got a degree in music education, went to Vandercook College of Music here in Chicago, and it was sacrilege if you tried to play rock and roll music there. And so it was just something that, strange turn of events, I just seemed to avoid. I mean, I'd heard Beatles songs. When nobody was looking, I'd turn on WLS radio and listen to, Dick Bionde. But it was just...
So it wasn't a religious thing. It just it just passed you by.
Yeah, it just passed me by, and I purposely ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
And and now I realize what I missed, and it's amazing. And so I'm hearing it with new ears. I'm with fresh eyes, and right now I'm really into the Who.
Okay.
It's like we've got this virgin in here. Ooh, we can play lots of stuff for Gary tonight.
Well, but one of the things that amazed me that you write about in the book is that you were aware of the song American Pie.
Yes.
But you weren't aware of the significance of Buddy Holly in that song.
Until a year ago. A year ago, a friend of mine, Tim Duggan, when I was telling him I was going to see this Buddy Holly, and at the time I called him impersonator. Now I hate it that I really thought of it that way. But I was going to see this show, and Tim said, well, he says, the music died, in 1959? And I just looked at him. I said, what do you mean the music died? And he got this strange look on his face. He says, please tell me that you know what that means. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. And so, he started going through the whole thing. February made me shiver with every paper I'd deliver. And I still didn't get it. And it wasn't until I really started digging into this and reading that I really understood. And now that, American Pie just has, such new meaning to me.
Johnny mentioned that you two probably would have gone to school together. So you're how old?
I'm 56.
Okay.
Now, you are much younger than 56. So.
You would have been a senior, and I would have been a junior.
Okay.
And on the other end of that scale, I'm 67, and I remember so clearly the day that I was coming home from school. I was just in high school, got off the bus, and a woman that I knew as a crossing guard when I was in grammar school, when I got off the bus, she was there, and she said, "Did you hear what happened?" And I said, "No, what?" That's how I found out about the plane crash that killed all of them. And the news really didn't come out until the day after. That's when we were getting the news.
So here you are, a teenager.
Yeah, I mean,
this
it
is
was
your
one of those
crossing guard, which I've always found fascinating.
I'm just kind of drawing a comparison here between your not really having been aware of that, and that being a pivotal event in my teenage years. That was like, whoa. I mean, there had been previous rock and roll or R&B deaths, Johnny Ace, people like that, but this was the first time that there was an incident of this significance. It was like a thunderclap. Right.
And you were a musician.
Yeah.
So you were already listening to Buddy's music and
Sure.
trying to emulate what he was doing.
And again, even though the generations are different, I absolutely agree with one of the things that you mentioned in the book, that the difference between Elvis was, regardless of the music, a lot of Elvis's fans were there because of how he looked.
Right.
With Buddy Holly, it was the music. It was always all about the music with Buddy Holly.
I think someone said, you quote them as saying, people would go to see Elvis, they would go to hear Buddy.
Right. And that's really true. I mean, Elvis was a great performer, but he wasn't producing his own stuff. He wasn't the creative, end of it. Where Buddy was the whole package. I just recently heard somebody on a talk show. I was driving through Omaha, Nebraska, and they said, that the Beatles were the first group that were self-contained. They wrote their own stuff, produced their own stuff. I wanted to crawl into the radio. I just couldn't, I couldn't believe that. But Buddy Holly really is not totally appreciated for exactly who he was yet. I think he's more popular today. I mean, he's going through this resurgence. Everything in life is cyclical. But people are really just starting to, as time flows past and we start having more of a panoramic view of that period, people are starting to realize who Buddy Holly was and what he means to music and culture.
Yeah. And when you listen, you mentioned the Beatles, but you look at some of the Beatles' earlier recordings at Words of Love, that was Buddy Holly note for note.
Oh, yeah.
And just beyond that, just the influence that he had on the Beatles.
And the Beatles didn't deny that. Mm-hmm. It's a strange thing. Don McLean, when I interviewed him, he talked about the fact that when the Beatles came here...
When you interviewed him, or when he did his monologue on the phone to you? You want to explain that?
Yeah, that's really true. I had this opportunity. I thought, this is great. I'm going to interview Don McLean.
The man who did American Pie, among many other things.
And it was a surreal experience. He picked up the phone and started talking, and talked for 20 minutes, then hung up. And I didn't get a chance to ask any questions, really say much. But it was amazing what he had to say. And one of the things he said was that You know, that people, when the Beatles came, people thought they were hearing something new, something they thought it was invented in Liverpool and delivered here. And he said the Beatles were not taking credit. The Beatles were saying, this is Buddy Holly. We're imitating Buddy Holly. We're inspired by Buddy Holly. But he said the Americans didn't hear that. All they knew was this is the Beatles. This is new. This is fresh.
And as I read that, I got to tell you as an aside, I felt guilty because I didn't hear that. You know, I just going, I was going, you know, I had Beatlemania.
Well, but then again, you were 3.5 years old, 3 years old when Buddy died. Yeah. And so the Beatles were really your first look at this music. And it's the same way with me. But I don't know. You know,
Paul McCartney is very open about. Today he wants to keep Buddy alive and keep make people more aware and get us to appreciate what he did 50 plus years ago.
Well, that's why he bought the Buddy Holly music catalog.
That's right. Yeah. We're talking about a brand new book. Gary W. Moore, our guest in the studio. He's the author of Hey Buddy, In Pursuit of Buddy Holly, My New Buddy John, and My Lost Decade of Music. And Gary has a couple of book signings coming up. We're going to tell you all about those in just a few minutes on WGN.
Well, all right, but it's so easy to feel this way. I started wishing you were here, but I know that'll be the day. And maybe, baby, I shouldn't be so sad, but it starts raining my heart when I think of all you had. Hey, buddy.
Steve King and Johnny Putman at WGN Radio. In the studio with us, Gary W. Moore. He is the author of Hey Buddy, In Pursuit of Buddy Holly, My New Buddy John, and My Lost Decade of Music. It is a book that belongs in your collection. It is a book you absolutely should read. And we should go back to where this all started. And we're talking about Buddy Holly, but it wasn't just Buddy Holly's music that started your search. It was something that happened and a performer that you saw at a Buddy Holly tribute show.
I still have trouble explaining it. My mother-in-law took me to this show, and we listened to the whole thing, and it was great, but nothing really struck me. Nothing excited me. I remember when the show was coming to an end, I thought, this is great, but I wouldn't do it again. And then the man who was performing as Buddy said, I'm going to do a song now that I've written in tribute to Buddy. And my first thought was, this will be a train wreck. Here we had all these great original songs by this great performer, and now he's going to play something he wrote. And he sang, Hey Buddy, and he said, look at me. And I did. And I was just absolutely captivated. Something seized my mind, seized my heart. And it sent me on this journey to learn more about not just Buddy Holly, but John Mueller, the man who performed this song. I mean, this song is a hit song waiting to happen.
Absolutely.
It absolutely is.
We've been saying that, well, since he performed it in studio back in 1999, the 40th anniversary of the plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens.
John, that was the first time you had ever performed that song publicly, when you were in the studio with us along with Nikki Sullivan, right?
That's correct. How you doing, guys?
Good.
How you doing,
John?
Great.
It's nice to catch up with you, and it's so hard for me to imagine sometimes that, gosh, it's been over 10 years since we've been talking with you and, you know, following you at all over the world, in fact.
And much like what Gary is saying, if I can absolutely appreciate Gary's take on this, because as we've told you, John, I was never a fan of impersonators, tribute artists, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And we went to see, when you were here in Chicago, we went to see you in Hey Buddy, and I was blown away by that, and so was Johnny.
Remember, we had a 16-year-old with us, and then we had my folks with us, so we had all these generations represented, and I'll never forget the 16-year-old had stars in her eyes because she was in love afterwards. I mean, she stood outside in the lobby waiting to get John's autograph, and really, John, you don't know this, but now that, you know, she's in her late 20s, her choice of music is music from the 50s, and I really take that back to that night.
Oh, that's great. I'd love to hear that. That's my favorite part of doing this, is bringing young people to this music. It's just great. You
are in Washington State, having just finished a show, right?
Well, we just got here today, Johnny. Well, this evening, I should say, and we have a show tomorrow night and the following night here at this beautiful showroom here in a casino called Northern Quest. And,
well, for people listening to us around the country, blatant plug. What time is your show, and are any tickets still available?
I think there's some tickets available, and I think it's 7:30 tomorrow night and 7:30 the following night, Tuesday and Wednesday night, and then we travel to Chicago on Thursday and do our annual Willowbrook Ballroom show there in Willow Springs, and that show is getting close to being sold out, but there's probably maybe 50 to 100 tickets left there.
That show gets bigger every year.
Yeah, this is how many years that you've been doing that show?
Wow, I think it was 1999 was the first year we went there, shortly when we did the 40th anniversary, and I really have to thank the Steve and Johnny show for, kind of in a way forcing me to write Hey Buddy, because I remember, I think I was on the air with you guys 2 weeks before the 40th anniversary, or 39th, was it 39th or 40th?
It was the 40th anniversary.
Yeah, 40th, yeah. And I just, it was a great impetus for me to finish the song. I remember I had started working on it, and you guys said it were so nice to want to bring me back, and I think Nikki Sullivan was in the studio with us as well.
Yeah, he was.
And Bob Hale.
And Bob Hale.
And that was one of the rare cases where we ever had a guest back in that short a period of time, but we were so impressed with you, and then when we were going to be doing the anniversary show, we wanted you back, and I remember you sitting here in the studio, and you had a legal pad with all the lyrics that you just finished.
Yeah. I'm a notorious procrastinator about writing songs, and this was a great. I wanted to. This was kind of like my. It was kind of like my gift to Nikki Sullivan for all he'd done for me and tutoring me, and Buddy Holly, all things Buddy, and I wanted. It was important for me to get the song done that night, and I have to give you guys big credit for that because it was. A really good impetus for me to finish it.
And when we say Nikki Sullivan, we're talking about one of the original Crickets. Yeah. And was that the first night that you had met Nikki?
No, I think he saw us do the show in San Diego, and it was such a big hit there, they brought it to Chicago.
That's right, yeah.
And then he had, I think he was on a publicity jaunt there in Chicago for that time period, and it just worked out great that it was close to the 40th anniversary, and I just remember when we finished it out live on your show that he was fairly teary-eyed.
Oh, yeah. We all were. I remember it.
Yeah, I remember it very clearly.
It was a big box of Kleenex night. John Mueller with us on the phone. John's coming to town. We'll tell you more about that in just a moment. And we have with us in the studio Gary W. Moore, the author of Hey Buddy. And he's got book signings coming up, so stick around.
Hey, buddy, look at me. I'm just sitting here reminiscing, and I know your words of love will not fade away, but something's still missing. Well, alright, but it's so easy to feel this way. Start wishing you were here, but I know that'll be the day. And maybe, baby, I shouldn't be so sad, but it starts ringing in my heart when I think of all you had. Hey, buddy, I got those early in the morning blues, but I won't set my foot right down on my valley of tears. Got nothing to lose. Gonna start rocking around with all the Ali V. Every day a rockabye rock will be the cure for me. Yeah, I wanna tell my blues, don't you come back knocking, 'cause I'm gonna change all those changes now, and I'll be rocking. Hey, buddy, rave on, sing us a song. Baby, won't you come out tonight? We're all looking for someone to love down here. Help us make it through these blue days and black nights. Hey, buddy, listen to me. I got a girl on my mind, And when I play her your true love ways, oh boy, it works every time. You see now, love's made a fool of me before, but now it doesn't matter anymore. 'Cause your songs tell me how and what to do. Yeah, I'm learning the game now with Peggy Sue. Hey, buddy, rave on, sing us a song. Baby, won't you come out tonight? We're all looking for someone to love down here. Yeah, help us make it through these blue days and black nights. Yeah, hey, buddy, rave on. Your songs live on. Baby, won't you come out tonight? We've been crying and waiting and hoping for so long. Help us make it through these blue days and black nights. Hey, buddy, we'll see you on down the line.
That was the first time that John Mueller ever performed Hey Buddy in public. That was in our studio. And I still remember what Nikki Sullivan, who was in the studio, said. I mean, there was this moment of silence after John finished that. And Nikki said, I knew Buddy Holly, and John has proven that he did too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Wow.
It was just...
Thanks for reminding me of that, yeah. Wow.
And that, of course, is a song that changed our guest life. Gary's with us in studio, and he's the author of Hey Buddy. And that's the first time you heard that version, the first version.
Oh,
of the song.
that's beautiful.
And
I mean, it has acoustic has a totally different feel.
Yeah,
to
there's
it,
kind of
and
a
it's-
rawness to it, too.
And Gary, I wonder if you agree. One of the things that struck me is that whole acoustic version, to me, that was like acoustic Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to embarrass you, John, but I mean, you were channeling something that night.
Well, it was certainly an emotional experience for me, for sure. And yeah, I think I was. It was just a special night. It was just a great night. That's the first time I did that song anywhere, not just publicly. I literally went from I forget where we were staying in Chicago. I think it was the Presidential Towers or something, and I literally had been rehearsing it in there, but never really done it publicly. So it was fun.
I have to chuckle, though, because, again, as many times as you've been on stage, I could see you. There was some certain amount of nerves that were involved. And anytime you're doing a new song and you're doing it for the world, it's and since that time, you've probably done it thousands of times on stage, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, I haven't heard that version in a long time either, and I can hear myself. I'm like, I'm kind of rushing here because I was probably nervous as heck.
Yeah, yeah, right.
But there was that adrenaline that helped to make it a really special performance.
Yeah, it really. I'm really so glad you guys put that on that collection. I was really honored by that, and it was really neat.
Well, tell us what happened when you got you were contacted via email by
you get this email
by
from
our guest Gary, and Gary says, "I've just been to the show, and we know you, John. You answered your email, and you said,
I did. I thought, here's a nice gentleman. We get all kinds of great emails from fans across the country, and I just assumed Gary was another person taken by our show and whatnot. But the more he said, contact me about your song. I'm really taken by this song, and but I think he put a credential in there, like his book.
Mm-hmm.
It's his other book, Playing with the Enemy, which is a great book. And so I probably clicked on that link or something, and I was like, oh, this is a real writer, and so I was very interested, intrigued by what he had to say, and struck up a great conversation. And we got to chatting, and the more we started, I started telling him the history about this whole thing. The more intrigued he seemed to be, and next thing I know, he told me he was going to be writing a book about all this.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, well, you got to maybe tag along backstage sometime during one of our shows and get some firsthand accounts, and which he did, and he really researched the book well. Like I was very, very thankful too that he didn't write another. There's been so many Buddy Holly biographies out there already that have covered a lot of the same similar ground, and I think that the unique thing that hasn't been done that Gary captured is the book talks about how his legacy is continuing today and how it affects people today. So it's kind of more about how the music touches everybody's lives and
how you're the conduit for that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that was really cool. I was really honored to be a part of that. I never, on your show in 1999, I would have never known it would have grown as big as it has. I mean, we're playing with. Yesterday I'm watching the Bears football game in my house, and I get a phone call. I pick up the phone. It's Peter Nero from the Philadelphia Pops calling me to want to advance the show we're going to be doing with him and the Philly Orchestra in March.
Oh, congratulations!
Cool.
Yeah, so he's asking me all these questions. I couldn't believe, a conductor of that, and a musician of that caliber is calling me on the phone and asking me about our show. He wanted to see the charts and all this, and so I mean, it's just been an incredible experience for me. And I gotta the power of Buddy's music and power of people. Spreading the word and stuff. It's been great.
But Gary, as you point out in your book, one of the things that you were impressed with about John is that unlike a lot of Elvis Presley wannabes, John is not trying to be Buddy Holly. One of the things that we've been impressed with over the years is that John has his own style of music. He's got his own career, his own albums, but he is paying a more than worthy tribute to Buddy Holly and helping to keep that flame alive.
Well, there's a big difference in music whether you're imitating or interpreting. Mm-hmm. And John interprets Buddy Holly, and I hear that evolving. You hear recordings of John early doing Buddy, and it's one thing. You hear things on YouTube now, and it's evolving. Just like when Sir George Solti was the conductor of the Chicago Symphony, nobody ever said he was a Beethoven imitator, mm-hmm. But yet they were playing works by a great composer and putting their own interpretation to it. And I think that's what John does, and does it so well. And it's not a carbon copy of Buddy, but I think Buddy would be really proud and really excited about what John's doing.
You do say there's this great chapter in the book when you're having a conversation with John, and I think it's with Ray Anthony, and
mm-hmm.
you're talking about the period of time that they've been doing Buddy's music, and in Ray's case, Ritchie Valens' music, and you point out that they've actually been performing their music longer than the guys, the originals, performed it. And John, you and Ray were both like, yeah. Wow!
Yeah, that was kind of a epiphany for both of us. We didn't know whether to feel, there's a certain amount of, I don't know, it's kind of a mixed emotion. Like it was, well, yeah, it's great we're performing this music, but it's also somewhat of a guilty regret, or that these original guys didn't get to see this, or live this. The legacy of their music,
I mean, their lives were they were so short. Their careers and their lives
mm-hmm.
were so short.
Yeah, tragically short, and they just didn't get to realize the impact of it. I don't think, and I don't think towards the end of 1959 anybody even knew that rock and roll was going to take off like it had.
Yes.
Or started to. Yeah.
I can still remember it, and I'm going in a little different direction here, but. You talk about whether or not rock and roll would be be around now and the influence that Buddy Holly has. I remember the first time I heard the album that had things like It Doesn't Matter Anymore and Raining in My Heart and stuff like that, and I thought, wow, this is something special. And you can only imagine where Buddy Holly would have gone. You write in your book, Gary, that it's probable that had he been alive today that someone would have helped to revive his career like Roy Orbison's or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I have to disagree with you a little bit there because I think that Buddy would not have, but wouldn't have faded away. I think he would have been a constant, evolving creative force that would still be a vital force in music today.
Sure, and that's the fun thing about having these discussions, because we don't know. I don't think Buddy would have faded away. I mean, I think he was a force to be reckoned with in the entertainment industry. Whether he would have moved more into producing and away from performing, I don't know.
As he was just starting to do, too.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
transition to country music, as you suggest. You know, that would have
Who
been
knows?
a natural transition for him, too.
But I could see Buddy being like Willie Nelson, where he's done a duet with everybody under the sun. You know?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
In fact, is it true that the Buddy Holly, speaking of tribute, the tribute album that came out back in the 90s is Grammy nominated?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like in a historical category.
I looked at that and I said, wow, well, okay, but it's up against the Beatles, and which is ironic, and a couple of the other historical albums. And I thought, well, that came back out in 96, and they're even considering that history. But the fact that it was a tribute to Buddy's music from 1959, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I've just started listening to that. I downloaded that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks
you
ago
really?
when I heard that. And that's fascinating. When you listen to Waylon Jennings, he plays Learning the Game.
Right.
Yeah.
And you listen to the emotion in his voice. Then you read the history of that. He was in the apartment with Buddy when Buddy recorded that. And he made a comment that after we recorded, Buddy took me down and bought me a pastrami sandwich. It was the worst tasting thing I'd ever had in my life, you know.
Good country boy.
That's right.
All right.
We're talking with Gary W. Moore. The book is Hey Buddy, In Pursuit of Buddy Holly, My New Buddy John, and My Lost Decade of Music. Just before we break, the Blatant Plug Mirror Ball has started flashing, and you're going to be doing some appearances.
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to be busy. Thursday, you're going to be at Anderson's Bookshop, great bookshop out in Naperville, 7 o'clock on Thursday night with a book signing. And then Friday at Nazarene University in Bourbonnais, that's going to be the 21st, Olivet and Nazarene University. Now, are you going to be talking, or is that a book signing, or what's
You can't shut me up. So if I'm somewhere, I'm talking.
Okay.
And so it'll be a book discussion. I'm going to take folks through the history of it, and we're going to play Hey Buddy for everybody.
Oh, great.
And then sign some books, and I want to introduce. Buddy Holly doesn't need introduction, but I want to introduce John Mueller in this song to as many people as I can, because it's an incredible gift.
And then on Saturday, Gary's going to be at Barnes & Noble in Joliet, and that's the 22nd, Saturday the 22nd, Barnes & Noble in Joliet, and that's a 2 o'clock book signing. And you can go to both John Mueller's website,
Your Buddy John.
Your Buddy John versus Hey Buddy Book, which is Gary's site. We've got
a lot of buddies around here.
We've got them linked from our blog After Dark, and we'll come right back with our guests, John Mueller and Gary W. Moore.
May think I'm crazy to wish I could go back, but it's true, 'cause a boy's got to do what a boy's got to do.
Steve King and Johnny Putman at WGN Radio in the studio with us. Gary W. Moore, author of Hey Buddy, In Pursuit of Buddy Holly, My New Buddy John, and My Lost Decade of Music. And that is a little bit of his new buddy John Mueller, from his terrific album, A Boy's Gotta Do What a Boy's Gotta Do. And going to segue for a second, John. The Blatant Plug Mirror Ball has started flashing for you. You working on any new albums? We going to be able to get you in the studio for a new album release party or anything?
Yeah, I actually, hopefully this spring it's going to come out. I've been finally happy with the material, and I try to make each album, the new album, better than the last one, and of course it takes me about 4 or 5 years. So I just read a quote that Roger Miller said the other day that I thought was great. He said, the human mind is a beautiful, wonderful thing. It starts the minute you're born and stops the minute you sit down to write a song.
I love it. Let's go back again to your first encounters with Gary. So he's emailed you, and he says that he wants to do something, and then you two start having more conversations. And where does it go from there?
Well, as I recall, I at at first I didn't know how serious he was about actually. I thought maybe he just wanted to do maybe an article. We kind of said, well, we'll see where it leads if there's enough material and whatnot, and maybe it'd be an article or a research project or something. I didn't know quite what the end result was going to be, and the more Gary delved in, he started sending me little excerpts that he'd been, toying with, and people that he was meeting in his travels, and the research he was doing about the history, and some of them were just. They started sending me these chapters. I just was got goosebumps over and blown away by the heart that I was reading. So I just wore his heart on his sleeve, and the people that he was interviewing were really interesting, I thought, and maybe he does have something here, and then he just gradually started sending more and more chapters, and I just thought it was a great idea. So I sent him pictures from our collections and stories from some of our fans and drawings and everything I could locate, articles and whatever I could do to help him out. And I think he came out to a couple of our shows and just kind of took off from there. That's how I recall, right, Gary?
Yeah, it's I didn't know where this was going to go when I started. I really didn't. In fact, my publisher, Ted Savis, God bless him, he when I sent him the final manuscript, he said, "This isn't the book I bought." He said, "This isn't a Buddy Holly biography." I said, "No." I said, "It's it just evolved the way that it did." And I'm a very emotional person. My wife, she's Arlene, who I've been married to for almost 36 years. She's the love of my life. She's a Iowa German, and she's not as emotional as I am, or at least she doesn't show it. And when she finally read the final manuscript, she goes, "Are you really going to admit all these things? Are you going to admit about crying about this and being upset with that?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't care. When I was 26, maybe I'd care. When I'm 56, I could care less." But,
and as you say, as you get older, you have a tendency to cry a little quicker too.
Yeah,
which I love about you. And John, the finished product is wonderful, and we're just so proud that Gary came along and has brought new recognition to you in a different way, in the form of true appreciation. I mean, you deserve it, and we're just tickled.
Oh, I thank you so much. Yeah, I've been very blessed to meet the people in my life that I have through this. It's I think that's one of the gifts that maybe Buddy looking down is given upon me, is just these wonderful people I've met through doing this. It's been great.
Well, come see us soon, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're over.
My mother lives in Evanston now, so.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So I got to hook up sometime.
Well, we're overdue for another dinner at Sabatino's.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, John. Have a great show Thursday night at the Willowbrook Ballroom in Willow Springs. Few tickets available. You can go to John's site, get information, or just show up there on Thursday night, and you're going to have a really good time. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Steve. John.
Take care.
Take care, John. We have locked the door. Gary is not getting out. More coming up, so stay with us at WGN Radio.